and architecture of Flipgrid to be able to share with a peer or help a peer get started if they're new to Flipgrid. And it's just a good way to kind of get started. So you can find out all the information about the Certified Educator Program by going to flipgrid.com/certified. And on that grid, you can actually peruse a bunch of different videos that teachers have posted about ways they've used it. So it's a great place to get started.
Okay, so I know you're probably expecting this question, August the 10th.
Yeah.
Some big reveals, some big announcements. What can you tell us about that?
Oh boy. So let me take a step back. So Flipgrid was actually created a long time ago, and a lot of people don't know this. So we were created at the University of Minnesota as a project in the College of Education and Human Development back in the end of 2012. So an instructional design professor named Charlie Miller was teaching PhD level instructional design students a design class. And he was also had received a grant and was traveling to these remote areas of the world studying how they approach education in areas that are more disconnected from larger metropolitan areas, right? At the same time, he was teaching this class of students in Minnesota, and he didn't want to lose that Socratic seminar style discussion that he really values in class and values in design thinking. So Charlie and one of his PhD students, Bradford Hosack, over the course of a weekend created this very rudimentary way for Charlie to post a discussion stimulus and for students to respond with individual videos via their webcam, right? And that's how it started way back in 2012, and it kind of incubated as a project in the College of Education for several years before we became a private company, Flipgrid, in February of 2015. Sorry, my phone's ringing here. So every year in August, we launch what we call the all-new Flipgrid. And the reason we call it that, even though we're not launching out of beta, we're not completely redesigning Flipgrid, is because Flipgrid has these values of simplicity, of amplifying voice, of engaging creativity and strengthening community. And nothing, that will never change. The core of what Flipgrid will never change. But we believe that software is a living, breathing thing that needs to change as our community expresses different needs and desires. And so we really listen very intently to the wishes and asks of our community and the ways that they would like to use Flipgrid in their classroom. And so we really try to every August really release what we consider to be an all-new version of Flipgrid that really is reflective of our community, of our Flipgrid ambassadors, of our certified educators, of all of our Flipgrid educators. So this August, to get around to finally answering your question, is going to be our biggest release yet. And we're really focusing on making improvements to Flipgrids in 3 key areas. The first is making improvements to the way that teachers and educators and admins interact with Flipgrid. The second is to make improvements to how a student interacts with Flipgrid to make it more streamlined and more fun for students. And third, and what I believe might be most important, is we're making a lot of improvements and updates to the way that Flipgrid can be used to engage with parents, with families, and with the community at large, while still protecting student privacy. So we've got a ton of stuff coming out in August. There really isn't any one key feature that's like stands out above and beyond the crowd. There is 100 new things that we're doing, but at the same time, if you've used Flipgrid for a few months, you're going to be able to log into your admin and still know exactly how to use Flipgrid. It's not gonna be confusing to use Flipgrid. Nothing's gonna have changed on your existing grids. And so we really try to ensure that we always protect the values of simplicity and power in every change that we make. So I'm sorry I couldn't really give you all that much information.
That's okay. We had to try.
Yeah, so check out flipgrid2017.splashthat, SPLASHTHAT, just how it sounds, .com, flipgrid2017.splashthat.com. We'll be live streaming all over the world. We'll actually have about 250 to 300 teachers in our office in downtown Minneapolis. So if anybody out there listening wants to attend, register right away before it sells out. We're going to have some guests. I don't know if this is public yet or not. We're going to have three partner guests that their name is very well recognized in the technology and education space that will be at our event and will be speaking on Flipgrid partnerships with their technology. I guess that's my as coy as I can be to say that. And it's going to be an awesome time. So definitely recommend registering at flipgrid2017.splashthat.com. Check it out.
That sounds very exciting, and I'm so looking forward to August the 10th.
Oh, wait, one more thing. So this is really cool. So I haven't really talked about our Flipgrid ambassador community. So our ambassadors are longer-term Flipgrid users. They're basically the inner circle of teachers that really have a lot of experience with Flipgrid and are the voice of our larger community, so that we make sure that everything we do reflects what our larger community is looking for, right? So our Flipgrid ambassadors, a lot of them are coming to Minneapolis for the event, but a lot of them weren't able to travel, so they're organizing viewing parties. So those are popping up all over the country where teachers are getting together. I think it's at like 6 o'clock at night before the live stream starts, from almost like an ed camp, informal PD style idea sharing, and then they'll watch the live stream together at 7. And Flipgrid supporting those, so we can provide a little bit of money for food and for drinks, and we can provide some stickers and stuff like that. So if you go to our blog, I think it actually might be the second newest post right now. I don't have the URL off the top of my head, but they're all listed. All the viewing parties are listed there, along with the chair of each location, so you can get in contact and go attend one if there's one near you. And if there's not, you can just schedule one. So if you're interested in scheduling one, email us party@flipgrid.com and we'll help you out.
Absolutely. And I think we may be doing that.
I think you should.
And we'll try to include a link. We'll look that up and include a link to that in our show notes. So
yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joey. We had a great time talking to you.
Yeah, sure did.
Absolutely.
About implementing Flipgrid into our classrooms a lot more this coming year.
Awesome. Well, we are really, I mean, the Flipgrid Fever community, I don't know if you've all, I mean, I know, Michelle, you've been on Twitter quite a bit. The Flipgrid Fever community on Twitter is absolutely unbelievable. The way that they support each other and build each other up. I mean, the teachers that participate in the Flipgrid Fever chat and just like help each other get certified. It honestly, we are so appreciative of every teacher that decides to give Flipgrid a try and decides to help out a fellow teacher. We are very, very appreciative. We know how hard you all work, and we know how much you have on your plate, and to take time to talk about Flipgrid, to help each other out with Flipgrid. We're very, very appreciative. So thank you.
Thank you. I participated in a Flipgrid chat the other night, and I was exhausted whenever it was over and could not keep up. So many people with great ideas.
Yeah, so that one was pretty ridiculous. That was 30 minutes, fast and furious. So that's funny. So they go through participate to get the transcript, and apparently they can't provide a transcript if there's over 1,000 tweets in a certain amount of time, and there was over 2,000 tweets in 30 minutes on Flipgrid Fever. But I got to give a shout out to Participate, because I just saw on Twitter, like right before we got on this call, that they came through, they figured out how to get it for us. So we've got the transcript we'll be tweeting out later today. But yeah, that was pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
It was intense.
Yeah, for sure. And there'll be more of those. So.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate you spending time with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both. I really appreciate it.
Wow, so Flipgrid sounds like a great tool for generating creative classroom discussion and also for recognizing student voice. Michelle, you did an activity this year. It was about Shakespearean insults, wasn't it?
It was. We did some Shakespeare insult battles, and that is when I had you over to actually model that for the kids, and we had a good time with that. And
that was fun.
Yeah, I think I even tweeted that battle, or part of that battle, put that out on Twitter, and had some people respond to that. So that was a good time, and the kids had a good time. That was when I found out that I was going to have to kind of spread them out down the hall and maybe get on your nerves a little bit with my kids out in the hallway, but I think that they were pretty good with that. So yeah, it was a good time. They had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think you said get on my nerves. I think my students and I get excited about what we're doing when we see other students across the hall having fun doing what they're doing. So that's never a nuisance in at least our hallway. So that's one way that Michelle and I would recommend you using Flipgrid in an ELA classroom. But there are going to be 5 other ways that we're going to present to you guys how you can use Flipgrid in an ELA classroom. And there are many, many others which you can see in our show notes that we've written descriptions of and included there. So make sure you go there. But the first, Michelle, you've got many peer revisions as a great way to implement Flipgrid in the classroom. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right, because one thing that I want to make sure that we're doing in the show is that we link everything back to standards and to things that we're actually having to teach in class, because we can't waste a lot of time dealing with things that are not important to the content that we're having to have our students master. So I was thinking about writing. How could you use Flipgrid to somehow help the writing process and to help kids to get better at their writing? And one of the things that my students have struggled with when I've taught 9th grade, when I've taught even 11th grade and 8th grade, is that they often will not go back and revise their writing. They get something down on paper and they're done. If it was a requirement of 2 paragraphs, and they'll write those 2 paragraphs and they turn it in. So I thought about Flipgrid, that this would be a good place for them to do mini peer revisions. And it's really not even about the peer revision as much as it is about getting the kids to read their own work out loud, play that back to themselves, and hopefully go ahead and do a lot of those revisions before anyone else even hears it. So the peer revision is really just kind of the cherry on top for this particular idea that I had for using Flipgrid in English class.
Yeah, so I've noticed this as a writer and as a teacher, that when I begin to write something, I can sometimes overlook a lot of mistakes if I do not read it out loud. So when I read it out loud, I tend to catch those grammatical errors. I even sometimes recognize typos where I've repeated words more than once. Or I notice even sometimes the content or the structure, the order of sentences and that sort of thing is out of order. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly. So specifically, if we wanted to do these mini peer revisions with an introduction paragraph, maybe you would have everyone in the room be listening for a thesis statement. So do you hear a thesis statement in this paragraph? So as they're reading it out loud, first of all, they know they're going to have an audience. They know that several people are going to be able to hear them read their paragraph. They have to read it out loud. Then Flipgrid allows you to replay your own video before you post it, which I'm sure they're going to want to do since they have the audience of their peers. And so hopefully through that process, the paragraph itself will be much better even before it gets out there on Flipgrid for their peers to go and comment, to let them know, I don't hear a thesis statement, or your first sentence doesn't grab me, or maybe it doesn't flow, or, whatever it is that we're looking for in that particular lesson.
Okay, great. And so I'm assuming a checklist or a rubric would probably be used to guide the students who are not only doing their own revision, but also who are listening to their peers and assisting them with a response in a Flipgrid, correct?
Yes, a rubric would definitely be beneficial for that.
Okay.
So a lot of times when we are talking about things that we've heard in podcasts and seen on Twitter and that we're reading about, you mentioned Genius Hour, which is not something that I'm very familiar with, but how do you think that we could incorporate the ideas behind Genius Hour with Flipgrid?
Well, Flipgrid is perfect for Genius Hour because Genius Hour is all about using 20% of classroom time, allowing students to pursue their own projects that interest them. In other words, teachers not directing them to read a certain text or to do a certain assignment. It's a period of free exploration, which is why I don't use the term Genius Hour. I've kind of modified that and have my free exploration Friday. I use every Friday in my classroom to allow students to do this. The reason Flipgrid is so great for this then is basically because it allows students to do research or pursue learning about a certain topic or learning how to do a certain thing, and then be able to present their findings or present their new ability through the use of a 90-second video. And so, for example, what would a Flipgrid video consist of when utilizing Genius Hour? It could be a presentation of students' research or work, such as detailing ways a community celebrates a holiday, or explaining what is being done to find a cure for a disease, or informing an audience about unfamiliar conditions or disabilities. I just recently watched a video of a student's work in Genius Hour that was done for a YouTube video on dyslexia. I thought that was pretty interesting, and that could be contained within a 90-second clip where peers could watch this student's video about dyslexia, and in this video, this student is dyslexic himself, and learn not only about dyslexia and